Good day. We will be discussing designing the curriculum or crafting the curriculum. But we'll start with the teacher as a curriculum designer. As we all know that the role of a teacher has it's actually a very significant role in curriculum. So it may either in the implementation and the crafting and evaluation of the curriculum. No? So a curriculum as a planned sequence of learning experiences should be at the heart and mind of every teacher. Every teacher, as a curricularist, should be involved in designing a curriculum. In fact, it is one of the teacher's roles as a curricularist. As such, you will be a part of the intellectual journey of your learner. Since I think it is very imperative naman that we really have to have a part on creating our curriculum because tayo din naman yung mag-i-implement. And the good thing here is that if we are very familiar with the curriculum, I think it is if we are very familiar with the curriculum, I think it is better, no, when we are to implement it, no? Kasi galamay na natin siya. You will be providing the you will be providing them the necessary experiences that will enable the learner what you intend them to learn. As a curriculum designer, this task was not given much attention in the past. No, it is because according to them, no, before, when you are to design a curriculum, it should be people who are master really in philosophy and psychological aspects of education. So teachers are not we're not actually exposed to creating or crafting the curriculum. No? So every single day, a teacher designs a lesson or utilizes a curriculum that has been made and was previously written. Designing a curriculum is a very challenging task because you have to consider, of course, the quality of your learners at the same time, all aspects of the learners, no? Coming from or starting from the psychological, being the philosophical aspect of education and so on. So it is here where the style and the creativity of the teacher come in, no? Because of course, one of the characteristics of our teachers are very creative and of course very innovative, no? So thus, this particular lesson will provide the necessary concepts and activities that you as a teacher can refer to as you prepare yourself to be a curriculum designer. So again, we will be discussing lesson one, which is the fundamentals of curriculum designing. Here are the desired learning outcomes. The first one we have is to identify the fundamentals of curriculum designing. And of course, we have to appreciate the task of designing a curriculum. Although when you are to design a curriculum, no, you maybe you are constructing or you are developing a lesson plan. What I mean is you are writing a lesson plan. You're constructing your laboratory activities and so on. We are to try to appreciate those acts because at the end of the day, I think our aside from that's our role no as teachers, no, doing those things. At the end of the day, it is worth it, no, because dyan natin malalaman, and of course, at the end of the day, dyan natin malalaman kung meron bang change of behavior sa mga estudyante natin, no? And it's very, I think it is very fulfilling for us, no, to see na merong change of behavior coming from that output na ginawa ni teacher. Okay? So before a teacher designs a curriculum, it would be of great importance to connect to the fundamental concepts and ideas about the curriculum mentioned in the previous lesson. Okay. So we have to, of course, try to look at the basic concepts of curriculum, no, the mechanism of curriculum, no, kung ano yung dapat nandyan sa content and so on. And I think it is very important also to look into the different definitions of curriculum because dyan tayo hugot kung paano natin i-design yung tinatawag nating curriculum. Because once again, I would like to remind everyone that when you are to design a curriculum, it should have a concrete reason. No? It should have a philosophical or psychological basis or any legal basis for you to design a curriculum. So here we are actually mentioning here Peter Oliva. Now, as mentioned sa previous discussion, we actually had one of we actually discussed different curriculum design models, and one of those ay itong si Peter Oliva, no? So we will be focusing on the idea of Peter Oliva, building on Peter Oliva's 10 axioms for curriculum designers. When we say axioms, these are postulates, no? Mga assumptions, ideas, thoughts of own perception, kumbaga, no? Of Peter Oliva. 10 axioms for curriculum designers. As we begin to discuss about curriculum designing, all teachers need to know the different axioms or theorems regarding curriculum as presented by Gordon W. Taylor and Oliva in 2019. These axioms will be used to guide curricularists in designing a curriculum. Apart from, we have to inform ourselves to the different uh, psychological psychological concepts and philosophical ideas, no, of education. We also have here to, I think, um, anchor our designs to different axioms or theorems. No? Axioms are principles that practitioners as curriculum designer can use as guidelines or a frame of reference. So here are the 10 axioms of Peter Oliva in curriculum designing. First one is curriculum change is inevitable, necessary, and desirable. As I have mentioned, yung pinaka na-remember ko na characteristic ng curriculum is very dynamic and changing, ever changing, no? We all know that curriculum inevitably changing because of the necessity of the societies and of course the needs of the individuals. Okay. The next one, curriculum is a product of its time. No? A relevant curriculum should respond to changes brought about by current social forces, philosophical positions, psychological principles, new knowledge, and educational reforms. So if we're going to look at our curriculum, we actually shifted to what we call the enhanced basic education, which is the K to 12 curriculum. Most likely, our curriculum now is a product of its time. Now, there is what we call an educational reform. Kasi nga, sabi nila, according to research, Philippines, no, isa sa dalawang countries ng ang Philippines ang hindi pa naka-format no sa tinatawag natin na ASEAN format of education, no, which is the K to 12 curriculum. Next is curriculum changes made earlier can exist concurrently with newer curriculum changes. A revision in a curriculum starts and ends slowly. No, if we are to end a curriculum, we should not do it abruptly. No, we have to slowly end the program because, as we all know, transition is not is not an easy thing. No, more often curriculum is gradually phased in and phased out. Thus, the changes that occur can coexist and oftentimes overlap for long periods of time. If we're going to look at our curriculum, no? For example, in tertiary level, no, merong tinatawag na change of curriculum, no, from your course, no. You notice na meron ka pang kaklaseng old curriculum and then you are part of the new curriculum, no, because of course, aside sa meron pang enrollees, we cannot change the curriculum abruptly, no. Next, number 4, curriculum change depends on people who will implement the change. Teachers who will implement the curriculum should be involved in its development. As we all know that teachers have crucial roles in implementing the curriculum, no? Hence should know how to design a curriculum. If we are implementers, of course, I think it's imperative also that you are familiar in designing or crafting a curriculum. Because the teachers are the implementers of the curriculum, it is best that they should design and own the changes. This will ensure an effective and long-lasting change. That is why meron talagang malaking participation. No? Every time there is a change in curriculum, like for example, as for the K to 12 curriculum, with the enhanced basic education, we have to subject teachers to different trainings and workshops, no, for them really to be indulged with the new curriculum. And at the same time, we have to practice them writing modules, writing test exams, and so on, for them, of course, to be a part of what we call curriculum designers. Number 5, Curriculum development is a cooperative group activity. It is not an individualistic activity with individual decision. So group decisions in some aspects of curriculum development are suggested. As we all know that our curriculum, no, again, for the K to 12 curriculum, hindi siya nangyari because a certain group is actually taking into it. No? Maraming nag ideas. Actually have people from different establishment companies. We have TESDA. We have also technical panels coming from the tertiary level and so on. So maraming tao ang involved when we create our curriculum. Okay. Consultations with stakeholders, when possible, will add to a sense of ownership. We really have to inform the stakeholders, no? Even our parents, na kung sasabihin natin na, ay, hindi naman talaga alam ng mga parents kung anong pagbabago. We still have to inform our parents because they are part of the stakeholders. Even learners should participate in some aspect of curriculum designing. Yeah, I am talking about this particular sentence talks about classroom level perhaps, no? Like for example, if the ano ba, yung estudyante nag-take part siya in creating a rubric or a checklist for their group performance. Okay? Because at some point kasi merong part talaga na pag gagawa tayo ng rubric or checklist for a particular performance or problem-based activities, it is better for you to ano ba, involve uh, students, no? So you ask ideas coming from them if this particular criterion is necessary for for this performance and so on. Okay? So doing that, meaning to say our learners can also participate in curriculum designing. By the way, curriculum designing here is not intended only for the K to 12, yung big scope, no? We are talking about here from a bigger scope antod sa pinakaubos nga level, no? Up to the classroom level. Any significant change in the curriculum should involve a broad range of stakeholders to gain their understanding, support, and input. No, especially the input of our stakeholders, very important when you are to develop your curriculum. There is actually a chance that your curriculum cannot be implemented without the blessing of the stakeholders. No, because stakeholders na gina sila particular very essential role in the curriculum development or the curriculum process. Okay, so we are down to the sixth action of Peter Oliva. Okay, okay. Anyway, number six, curriculum development is a decision-making process made from choices of alternatives. Okay, and for number seven, curriculum development is an ongoing process. Bakit ongoing process ang curriculum development? Because right after you created your curriculum, hindi dyan natatapos yung storya. No? Because right after that, there is still an ongoing process. Right after development, you have to implement that. And right after implementing, actually, nandyan na din yung tinatawag natin curriculum evaluation ongoing din. Therefore, curriculum development is an ongoing process. As the needs of learners change, as society changes, and as new knowledge and technology appear, the curriculum must change. No? Baka this time, remember that the K to 12 curriculum is actually utilizing the spiral approach, no, in designing the content, no, of this curriculum. Baka later part, after 10 years, hindi na naman spiral approach yung gagamitin. Okay? Kasi nakadepende again sa kung ano yung kinakailangan sa society and of course, the needs of the individual learners. Number 8, okay, yeah, no, curriculum development is a decision-making process made from choices of alternatives. Number 8, curriculum development is more effective if it is a comprehensive process rather than a piecemeal. And that is actually true, no? So a curriculum design should be based on a careful plan. Kaya nga, I think yung pag-propose nila ng enhanced basic education, it runs, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it runs up to 3 years of planning, rigid planning, no? Starting from how they will arrange the content, no, because they have to get people, technical panel, no, technical working group, and so on. Okay, So a comprehensive process makes your curriculum more rigid and of course very essential and very effective, no, of course. Nine, curriculum development is more effective when it follows a systematic process. Again, we don't need a curriculum plan which is in a piecemeal. We have to have a very comprehensive plan so that our curriculum is it will be effective, no? And of course essential to people. Next, the last action of Peter Oliva, curriculum development starts from where the curriculum is. No? Medyo tricky ang sentence. No? According to here, curriculum planners and designers should begin with existing curriculum. No? We should not create a curriculum as in automatically without the basis or without using the basis of the previous curriculum. Our curriculum is actually based on the previous curriculum. No? Bakit nakagawa ng ganitong curriculum? Because the previous curriculum was evaluated, was assessed, and accordingly, hindi siya maging fit for this particular 21st century, no? Design sa education. That is why we have to improve the structure of our educational platform. So again, we are to create or we are to plan and design curriculum, of course, coming from the existing curriculum. An existing design is a good starting point for any teacher who plans to enhance and, of course, enrich a curriculum. Okay, so those are the 10 actions of Peter Oliva on building or curriculum for curriculum planners or curriculum designers. Building upon the ideas of Oliva, let us continue learning how to design a curriculum by identifying its components. For most curricula, the major components or elements are answers to the following questions. Now, let's try to look at the elements or components of a curriculum. The first one is what learning outcomes need to be achieved or the intended learning outcomes. I've been telling you that we really have to focus on the intention of giving the curriculum, intention of constructing and developing the curriculum. Therefore, we have to emphasize the intended learning outcomes now at the end of the day. Number two, what content should be included to achieve the learning outcomes? We're now talking about the content. We're talking about the subject matter. So one of the components and elements of a curriculum design is your subject matter. The third one is, of course, how to deliver the subject matter. And that is what we are talking about, teaching learning methods. Okay, so what learning experiences and resources should be employed, no? And of course, the fourth one is, of course, how can we identify if there is a change in behavior? We have to assess, no? If na-achieve ba natin yung tinatawag nating learning outcomes. Okay? So the question now, how will the achieved learning outcomes be measured? Okay? So let's try to dig in each of the element or component of a curriculum design. So first, we have behavioral objectives or intended learning outcomes or ILO. The reasons for undertaking the learning lesson from the student's point of view, no? Why we are constructing intended learning outcomes or actually focusing or giving center to our students, no? That is the point of view or the POV of students. It is desired learning outcome that is to be accomplished in particular learning episode or at the end of the discussion. Both the learner and the teacher are guided by what to accomplish. This is actually the nice thing, no? If we are to really give to the class or to the students the intended learning outcomes, because of course, as we all know, the main purpose why we are projecting the behavioral objectives or the ILO for that particular lesson, because we wanted our children or our learners to be directed, no, para merong maging focus yung pagkatuto nila for that particular topic. And for us teachers also, we are also guided kung ano yung dapat nating ibula-bula in front of the class. Okay? Next, expressed in action words found in the revised Bloom's Taxonomy Objectives of Anderson and Kraftful 2003. Okay? So, yung mga verbs na nandoon, kailangan natin gamitin, no? Ito yung mga unang parang salitang ginagamit natin if you're going to construct a behavioral objective or an intended learning outcome. Okay. Okay, so the statement should be smart. Okay, of course, we are very familiar sa ibang subjects natin sa professional education courses. The SMART is specific, measurable, attainable, result-oriented, of course, time-bound. Okay, time-bound. Or what we call the ABCD. So that's also the other format, the ABCD. The A now is the audience, letter B for behavior, letter C for condition, and D for degree. Okay, so that is actually the other way of constructing your behavioral objective or your ILO. Okay, I think this topic it should be discussed sa assessment. Express each outcome in terms of what successful students will be able to do. Again, our POV ito ng mga estudyante, no? And of course, students will be able to explain the reason, for example, and students must have explained the reason why. So, yan yung dapat na magawa ng estudyante at the end of the lesson. Include different kinds of outcomes. Kung nakadepende, kaya nga meron tayong tinatawag na psychomotor, we also have your affective, and we also have cognitive. And you can have those three domains in one class. Next component is the content or subject matter. So the topic or subject matter that will be covered of your sa curriculum natin. Relevant to the outcomes of the curriculum. Of course, we are to, again, sa previous discussions natin, we have to make sure that the content or the subject matter are relevant, significant. No? Yung mga ganyan. Next, appropriate to the level of the lesson or unit. We have to make sure that calculus, no, ang calculus 1 dapat mabigay sa ganitong sa tertiary level. Hindi pwede mag-calculus 1 ang grade 1. Okay? So there should be an appropriate to the level of the lesson or unit. Next, up to date should reflect current knowledge, no? Kasi there are ideas that are obsolete, no? Yung idea natin that uh, the heart takes the emotion, no? Hindi yan totoo, no? That's actually a very old statement. At the same time, the idea of Lamarck on theory of use and disuse, that is also very old, no? We have to check, no? And accordingly, in terms of neurons, according to them, yung neurons daw hindi daw mag-regenerate ang neurons, but according to some research, mag-regenerate daw ang neurons. So see, we really have to make sure that the concepts that we are to discuss to our students are up to date, dili siya fake news. Okay. Next, references. Of course, this one is one of the important things sa curriculum design. If you are to imagine your syllabus, makikita talaga natin sa structure ng ating very detailed syllabus na meron talagang references na naka-indicate. Okay. The references follows the content, of course, no? Hindi pwedeng hindi pwede na merong reference and then wala yung content. Ayan. Okay. It tells where the content or subject matter has been taken, no? Kung saan natin siya kinuha. At saka diyan din natin malalaman kung meron bang potential na maging fake news or obsolete yung idea, no? If the idea ay nung 1980s pa lang siya, oh my goodness, parang may chance na the idea is now obsolete, no? For this particular setup. The reference may be a book, a module, or any publication. Ang dami ng reference ngayon, no? It is actually sad to say that students are more into internet, no? They are not fun anymore in digging into books, no? Hindi na sila pumupunta ng library. All they have to do na kay mag-search na sa Google. Okay. That is why if you are going to give students a research paper or research work, you would notice na ang lahat ng dyan sa references ay naka-URL. For example, we have here Project Wild 1992 K-12 Activity Guide. That is how you write your, I think this is in APA, if I'm not mistaken, K-12. Yeah. APA ba? APA Boston. This is not a APA format. Project Wild. Number 2 is not an APA format. Sorry, APA pala ito. Sorry, APA format. APA format. Okay. When you are to write your paper, it is actually by default that we are to use APA. Hindi na po yung 6th edition because we already have 7th edition of APA. Although there are minimal changes on the formatting of your APA, it matters most on the period, kung saan dapat maglagay ng period or dapat naka-italicize ba yung title or whatsoever. So you just have to make sure that The APA format is on seventh edition. That's the latest format of APA. Next, of course, is the teaching and learning methods, no? Kung paano ituturo, no? Kung ano yung gagamitin ni teacher. Okay. The teaching learning methods should allow cooperation, competition, as well as individualism or independent learning among the students. We have to make sure that as much as possible in a certain lesson, no, in a one day lesson, no, dapat meron tayong different strategies. Might be we're using cooperation, might be we're using individualism or competition or independent learning. So we have to make sure that in 60 minutes, we have to integrate different kinds of learning methods or strategies. No? Kasi of course, we have to make sure din na we are catering the all characteristics na nandyan sa ating classroom, especially if you have 60 students inside. No? Next, when we say cooperative learning activities, this will allow students to work together, and this is actually nice. But I would like to inform everyone that when we are to group our students, we should group them in a minimal number of members. We should not group a particular group to up to five, more than five, no? Because you will give or this will give them the idea of idleness, no? Yung iba na especially kung merong bright sa grupo, may na dahil na siya nga, okay, ikaw lang sa himo ana. Kung kinsa putong ganahan mo, baga-baga og now, maura pud siya mo present. Okay? So you have to make sure that there is a minimal. Of course naman, we really have to make sure also that there is an mura og parallel, no? Or compensatory, kung baga, no? If the activity requires a larger number, no, of members, you can have that, no? But I think the idea of doing it is not more than five. Okay. Also, if you have students, you have to identify students na as a grupo that are fast learners, no? You make sure na hindi natin sila igugrupo, no? Hindi pwedeng maging bias yung groupings na sasabihin ng mga estudyante na ay nako hindi na kami mananalo nito kasi mga bobo kami lahat dito. Sure na sila yung magtapuan kasi mga top mga bright na sila nga grupo. Okay? So we have to make sure that this is a random arrangement or perhaps you can have a purposive one in such a matter that siguro pwede natin i-dispense yung mga fast learner students, no? And then they will lead perhaps yung mga ganyan. And then we also have here another strategy for cooperative learning activities wherein those students who are most likely very passive, no, bigyan talaga siya ng role for that particular group. No, I did that during my rapid years. Meron akong estudyante na yung parang nakaupo lang sa grupo and so on. So what I did, siya yung nilagyan ko ng posisyon. So siya yung ginawa kong leader ng grupo. Okay? And of course, as a leader of the group, wala siyang choice because nakasalalay yung grado ng mga kamembro niya. So that particular student will strive hard and you notice na merong change of behavior. No, literal na change of behavior. Okay? So that is cooperative learning activities. We have to make sure na hindi maging bias ang groupings natin. Another term we have is what we call the independent learning activities. This particular activity will allow learners to develop personal responsibility. The term independent learning activities is very nice, no? Especially meron lang of course we all know naman that a certain strategy will not work for that particular group of people, no? But if ever man this independent learning strategy is parang mag-work siya sa grupo na yan, you have to make sure na ibigay natin because the outcomes of the independent learning activities is very nice, no? Because merong tinatawag na sense of personal responsibility kasi, no? Another one is the competitive activities. This is actually very common na nangyayari sa atin sa classroom. Competitive activities where students will test their classmates against another in a healthy manner. No, siguro very common sa science yung magpa-quiz bee individual, no? So that is a competitive activities. You have to make sure that there are rules na guided sila na maging healthy pa rin yung competition, not the other one, no? Baka kasi right after that merong alitan right after. And I'm pretty sure if you will be future teachers, you would actually notice that. Okay. Another one is the assessment or the evaluation. Technically speaking, the term assessment and evaluation is different, no? You have to make sure na hindi lang sila you don't have to use them interchangeably. If you are done with the course assessment, no, in learning, you actually notice the main difference of the terms, no? Learning occurs most effectively when students receive feedback. And I think this is very important. In all learning process, feedback and immediate feedback is very important because this is, I believe also, this is important for the students to be informed, no, kung ano yung naging performance nila. That is why an abrupt and an immediate prompt feedback is very important. But then again, it is quite challenging for the teachers because we are actually loaded with a lot of work, and then the student submitted a particular activity and then you cannot comment na, parang score na lang ibibigay natin. Meron pang chance na yung mga activities natin will be scored at the end of the semester, at the end of the school years. It's very sad. So that is why I think um, when you are in your lecture side and when you are discussing something, I think it is very nice if you have your what we call the question and answer portion. No? While you are doing your lecture, you are asking also. I think that's the nice thing of looking into feedbacking. No? Kung meron ba talagang nalalaman ng estudyante or meron ba talaga siyang inquisitive side ng mga estudyante. Okay, giving feedback again is very important for the students. And I think it is not just for the students, but also for the teachers. Because when we are told to give feedback to students, na okay, the performance of this group kay nice, of course, you can give an assessment to yourself. You can actually evaluate yourself also that you are performing well. Diba? Okay, so that is why prompt and immediate feedback is very essential. Another, the process by which this information is generated is assessment. No, it has three main forms. You have self-assessment. Okay, with peer assessment, I'm actually doing this, especially if I have a very technical groupings. So I should have peer assessment, and of course, teacher assessment is very important. Next, assessment may be formative or summative, no? Yung formative, ito yung ginagamit natin right after very very cliche definition of formative assessment is yung magpa-quiz si teacher after the discussion. And sasabihin ni teacher, okay, please get 1/4 sheet of paper, number your paper 1 to 10. Mga ganyan. That is actually formative. And most of the formative, they are not graded, no? What the purpose of doing that is of course for us to get feedback coming from the students, a feedbacking system, no? And summative, of course, we all know summative test. Alam natin. And then the last one, students usually learn more by understanding the strengths and weaknesses of their work. That is why feedbacking is very important. Assessment and evaluation is very important. You have to give you have to tell them, okay, your activity is meron siya ganito. I love this one, this part here. But kulang siya sa mga ganito. Okay? So when we are to give feedback to our students, we make sure na meron talagang positive and negative. Na wag gawing negative lahat. So bawiin talaga natin. Kung hindi natin sadya na unahin yung weaknesses or the negative one, we have to make sure that along the way we have to bawi. No, we have to make sure na meron ding strengths or positive comments about the performance or the output of the students. Okay? So that's feedbacking is very essential in assessment and evaluation. Okay. Next, let's try to look at the major components of a curriculum design or syllabus. Of course, ang syllabus natin meron yang intended outcomes or the objectives. We also have your content or subject matter with references yan. We have method strategies with needed resources. Meron yung materials. So for example, a PowerPoint presentation ba yan? Overhead projector na mga materials ba yan? So meron talagang resources. And of course, evaluation, means of assessment. So if that is role-playing, and then anong gagamitin sa role-playing, ito bang checklist. If that is a quiz, so meron tayong answer key. If that is a laboratory activity, meron tayong laboratory worksheets. Yung mga ganyan. Okay, so that is the major components, or these are the major components of a course design or syllabus. I hope you understand the first discussion on curriculum design, and that ends the lesson. Okay, then let's proceed to lesson two. And lesson two is all about approaches to curriculum designing. Here are the desired learning outcomes for a while. Okay. So lesson two, we are down to lesson two, approaches to curriculum design. Here are the desired learning outcomes. First one, identify some familiar curriculum designs and approaches to the designs. And of course, the other one, we have to analyze the approaches in the light of how these are applied in school setting. It is very essential for us. Now, you have been familiarized with the preliminaries of making a simple design through lesson plan components. If you are already familiar in constructing a lesson plan, that is actually you are now designing, you're constructing, you're developing curriculum na. Because your lesson plan is actually one of the little thing of the concept of curriculum, no? Hindi yung curriculum lang na K-12 curriculum ha. So when you are writing a lesson plan, that is actually curriculum designing na. Okay, so you will further enrich your knowledge by looking into how other curricularists approach the curriculum design. In this particular discussion, you will see how several examples of curriculum designs are used in the schools and classrooms. So we will now be talking about the different approaches to curriculum design. So parang naging focus nila kumbaga, no? So the first one is what we call the child or learner-centered approach. This is based on the underlying philosophy that the child or the learner is the center of the educative process or educational process. And I think as teachers, as future teachers, alam na natin to, na ang sentro ng educative process or educational process is our learner. Okay? The curriculum is constructed based on the needs, interests, purposes, and abilities of the learners. Meaning to say, if we are to design our curriculum, we have to make sure that we are to focus our construction sa abilities atong estudyante. No? So if our students are like that, we have to create a curriculum like this. It is built upon the learner's knowledge, skills, learning, and potentials. Again, this is very understandable that the focus of this approach is child or the learner. The other one is will be the principles, no, of the child-centered curriculum approach. Of course, the first one, we have to acknowledge and respect the fundamental rights of the child. Make all activities revolve around the overall development of the learner. We have to make sure na hindi lang cognitive yung gimold natin, na hindi lang intelligence, knowledge, but we also have to make sure that the holistic part of the learner ang ating ma-develop, no, affective, and of course the psychomotor part. Consider the uniqueness of every learner in a multicultural classroom. As we all know, our classroom, especially the 21st century classroom, it is a very diverse classroom. No? Especially na pumasok yung idea ng inclusive education wherein we are now to accept students with um, special characteristics, no? So pwede na po tayong mag-accept ng genius na estudyante, yung mga ganyan. And then of course, as a teacher, we have to make sure that we consider their uniqueness. We acknowledge their uniqueness in a multicultural classroom. And by the time you are to acknowledge that and consider their uniqueness, dapat din mag-reflect yan sa strategies ni teacher. Okay. Number four, consider using differentiated instruction or of teaching. Why there is a differentiated instruction? Because we consider the uniqueness of every learner. Now, the definition of when we say differentiated instruction, literally that the instruction that is given, no, the strategies that the teacher will construct or prepare is differentiated according to every group of learners, no. If you are what do you call this, if you are talking about addition, for example, but then this particular group here don't know how to count. Therefore, then you have to make sure na meron kang differentiated instruction or activity intended for this particular group. If you have groups naman na very intelligent, no, what I mean is fast learner, ni na grupo, so you have to make sure na different din ang activity, sets of activity dito. Okay? Because again, we are to consider the uniqueness of every learner. Therefore, we have to consider using differentiated instruction of teaching. Provide a motivating support, a supportive learning environment, no, for learners, because as we all know, the classroom is a multicultural classroom. Therefore, we have to make sure that the atmosphere is motivating. No, why do we have to make sure that the atmosphere or the learning environment is motivating? Because in the picture of a multicultural classroom, no, iba't iba po yung behavior ng mga estudyante. So baka merong maging superior, merong maging inferior. And because of that arrangement, hierarchical level of your classroom, baka magiging unmotivated yung learning environment. No? Baka more on bullying na ito, baka more on destruction for this particular side. No? So that is why it is very challenging for teachers, especially now na yung mga classroom natin, we are to accept different characteristics of students, no? So quite challenging for teachers. So let's try to look at here a scenario of a child or a learner-centered curriculum approach. School X is anchored on the theory of multiple intelligences in all its curricular and co-curricular activities. No? Theory of multiple intelligences. So meaning, gi-accept po dito yung uniqueness ng mga estudyante or learners. Every classroom provides activity centers where children can learn on their own with different learning resource materials. Learners can just choose which learning center to engage in with different resources. This arrangement allows for the capacity of every learner to be honed. It also allows learning how to learn, hence will develop independence. The teacher acts as guide for every learner. The learner sets the goal that can be done, no, with a particular frame of time. Okay. The keyword here is this school anchored theory of multiple intelligences. Therefore, this particular scenario is really intended for the child or the learner centered curriculum approach. Okay. Next approach we have is the subject-centered approach. So prescribe separate, distinct subjects for every educational level. So meron talagang tinatawag na subjects for basic education, subjects for higher education, and subject for vocational technical education. No? We make sure na meron tayong separate and distinct. Yun yung parang, yun yung focus ng subject-centered approach na meron talagang separate and distinct subjects for that level, no? Because of course, as we all know, if you are going to look at the different levels requires different skills and knowledge level. Therefore, na gina siya lahi nga subjects the arrangement. Okay, so that is a subject center. Now let's try to look at the principles of this approach. The primary focus is subject matter. So that's the main concern here. Of course, klarong-klaro sa pangalan ng approach. No? The emphasis is on bits and pieces of information which may be detached from life. Ibig sabihin, there are times that these subjects are not realistic, no, detached from life. This is actually very challenging also for teachers because as much as we could, dapat talaga yung mga tinuturo natin sa mga estudyante natin, meron tayong example sa real world, no? But for here, it doesn't matter for the subject matter approach. It doesn't matter if the information or the pieces of information will detach them from life, from real world. The subject matter serves as a means of identifying problems of living, and learning means accumulation of content or knowledge, and teacher's role is to dispense the content. So that is more on the subject matter. Now let's try to look at the scenario of this approach. In another setting, School Y aims to produce the best graduates in the school district. Every learner must excel in all academic subjects to be on top of every academic competition. The higher the level of cognitive intelligence is, the better the learner. So yun yung paging naging practice natin before. No? Meron talagang malalang competition. No? Kung sino yung maging top 1, no? Or top 10. Hence, the focus of learning is mastery of the subject matter in terms of content. In terms of content, regardless if the concept or the topic is very abstract, no, or that may detach you from life, but the focus here is mastery of the subject matter in terms of content. How can you explain more thermodynamics? How can you explain more analytical chemistry and so on? Okay, so every student is expected to be always on top in terms of mastery of discipline. Memorization and drill are important learning skills. The school gives emphasis to intellectual development and set aside emotional, psychomotor, and even value development. Imagine, no? Okay, so the focus here again is the mastery of the content. And that is what we call the subject matter approach. Okay, next approach we have is the problem-based centered approach, based on a design which assumes that in the process of living, children experience problem. No? When we are to have this problem-centered approach, this is actually the nice thing because it is more on a very realistic. No, if we have here the subject matter which focuses more on the content of or the mastery of the subject matter or the content of it, regardless if meron bang emotions or the psychomotor, the other domains, no? But for the problem-centered approach, it is actually nice because this is actually, they assume that children will experience problems in a real world. No? This is also the nice thing. So this is problem-centered approach. Now, this approach is characterized by the following views and beliefs. The first one, the learners are capable of directing and guiding themselves in resolving problems, thus developing every learner to be independent. I think this is the nice, especially in the 21st century um, era, wherein students are more independent. No, when we are to train our students to be independent, we have to subject them to different problems, no? And then when they are subjected to different problems, let the students, what do you call this, create a solution, no, coming from that problem. Okay. And then the learners are prepared to assume their civic responsibilities through direct participation in different activities, not the rally thing, no, but the civic responsibilities ito. Next, the third one, the curriculum leads the learners in the recognition, no, and of course the problems in seeking solutions. The nice thing here is they can be motivated, and then the interests of the students are very clear, no? Because of course, merong problem projected, and they are the ones who will solve the problem. And I think that's the nice, actually nice approach yan siya for us, for the students to be motivated, more motivated, of course, more interested sa topic or sa discussion. Okay, now let's try to look at this particular scenario for the subject approach. What I mean for the problem-based approach. School Z believes that a learner should be trained to solve real life problems that come about because of the needs, interests, and abilities of the learners. And I think this is also the thing that we acknowledge the potentials of our students, no? Problems persistent in life and society that affect daily living are also considered. Most of the school activities revolve around finding solutions to problems like poverty, drug problems, climate change, natural calamities, and many more. Since the school is using a problem-based design, the same approach is used. It's actually very nice though. Case study and practical work are the teaching strategies that are utilized. No? Mga case studies natin sa mga estudyante natin. Why case study? Because ang case study kasi dapat meron siyang existing problem. Very clear sa kanyang surrounding sa ang case study. Okay, so the students will be now more aware of the status quo of the society, and of course, I think this is nice because this is also the time where the students will be immersed in society, no? Because of course, the students should be immersed in the society for the students to seek and of course find solutions to the problem. Okay, so that is the problem-based approach. Here sa table, presented here sa table are the types of curriculum design models. We have the subject-centered approach, our designs. We have learner-centered, and of course, we have problem-centered design. Now, let's try to look at them one by one. For the subject-centered designs, we have the subject design. No? We have discipline design, We have broad field design, we have correlation design, we also have process design. For learner-centered designs, we have child-centered design, we have experience-centered design, we have romantic or radical design, and of course, we have humanistic design. Now, of course, hindi naman siguro siya parang, ano ba yan? Unusual for us to include the humanistic design, no? Because sa learner-centered kasi we are more focused on the learner, the child. Okay. For the problem-centered designs, we have the life situation design, and the second one is the social problem or the reconstructionist design. Of course, we are very familiar of the ism, no, reconstructionism. So most likely that is on the societal reform, no, reconstructionism. Okay, so those are the main types of curriculum design models. Now let's try to look at subject-centered designs. Now, so subject design, this is the oldest and best known school design. I think mo siya yung idea ng subject design para siyang essentialism, no? So Morrison, we have Hutchins, no? School design of Morrison and Hutchins. Language and its uses, mathematics, sciences, history, and foreign languages. Subjects are best outlined in textbooks, yung nakikita natin sa textbooks, and uphold the importance of verbal activities. And then the next subject center design we have is the discipline. Of course, most likely parang wala namang gaanong difference yung subject at saka yung discipline design. Focus on the academic disciplines. Now, this is actually the school of King and Brownell. Emphasizes science, mathematics, English, history, and some other disciplines. The scholar's method in studying the content of this field, no? And suitable for all students going to college or not. Because these are basic, these are essentials, no? Discipline design. Next. Okay, the term broad fields design, interdisciplinary design integrate content that match together. Like for example, biology, chemistry, and physics are fit into general science. No, meron tayong general science na major, meron din tayong term na general science na subject. Okay, linguistics, grammar, literature, and spelling into language arts. Okay, we also have here MAPE. No, that is actually a combination of music, arts, physical education, and health. Okay, that is broad fields design. Another is the correlational design, attempts to identify ways in which subjects can be linked yet maintain their own identities. Like for example, English literature and history at the secondary level. Okay. So meron silang connection, but then again, if we're going to look at, we still maintain our identities, no? English literature and history. At some point, ang literature and history, the same. Okay? But they have their own identity. Now, for chemistry and mathematics, chemistry, the most of the mostly ang language ng chemistry ay mathematics. But then again, we do have a separate subject for that, mathematics. No, they have their correlational linkage, but then again, we maintain their own identities for chemistry and mathematics. Okay, so that is correlational design. Next, the process design focus on the student as meaning maker, teaching critical thinking. Stress procedures that allow students to analyze reality and construct, no, different from the way the world appears to the casual viewer. So that is process design. Next, for the learner-centered designs, we have, of course, the child-centered design. Okay, students must be enthusiastic in their learning environments, centered on students' lives, needs, and of course, interests. No? We have here Heinrich Pestalozzi. We also have the Friedrich Froebel. No? Children would achieve self-realization through social participation, learning by doing. Actually, si Froebel ang I think nagkuhan sa kindergarten. Okay. If we're going to look at the mode of your or the mechanism of your kindergarten, no, it is more on play. No? So social participation kasi yung parang gimmo ng kindergarten natin. So that is learning by doing also, which is also the concept of John Dewey. So friendship ni sila. We also have Francis Parker, the Quincy system, enable children to experience content. And of course, we have here in the person of John Dewey, structured curriculum around human impulses. Now that is to socialize, we have to construct, we have to inquire, we have to really um, ano ba, we have to make sure that we have to out ourselves into the society or community, something like that. There is interaction. So that is John Dewey. The other thing we have is the experience center design seriously highlights the learner's interest, their creativity, and self direction. Design the experiences for learners. So, experience gid siya. So, have confidence in each student's uniqueness and skill. Open, free school environment will motivate all students to shine. So, that is the experience centered design. So, more on the experiences for learners. Okay, very literal, no? The other one is the romantic or the radical design. It follows the idea of Rousseau's position on the value of attending to the nature of individuals, and of course the idea of Pestalozzi's philosophy that individuals can find their true selves by looking to their own nature. So, ibalik sa nature, kumbaga. We have to make sure that kilala natin yung persona natin, most likely. No? We have to look to their own nature, no? Kasi parang ganyan, no? So the idea now of Paulo Freire, a radical Brazilian educator, according to him, education should inform the masses about their oppression, provoke them to feel dissatisfied with their condition, and give them the skills necessary for correcting the identified injustices. Okay, so that is actually it's very radical, no? Romantic, no design. So this is according to Paulo Freire. No? We also have here a German philosopher in the name of Jürgen Habermas. No? Education's goal is liberation of the awareness, skills, and attitudes that people find necessary to take control of their lives. So we're going to look at really, we have to, individuals can find their true selves by looking into their own nature, kumbaga. No? So babalik tayo sa idea na yan. ni Pestalozzi. Risaluce. Next is, of course, the humanistic design. There is an association between learning and feeling. Okay. Of course, we're very familiar with the idea of Abraham Maslow and, of course, the Carl Roger, no? So, learning and feeling, kumbaga, no? We also have here in the person of James Moffat, a curriculum, according to him, a curriculum now that emphasizes spirituality enables students, no, to have a personal spiritual path unique to each that nevertheless entails joining. So it's more on a very humanistic side. So of course, again, this is the idea that there is an association between learning and feeling. No, this is humanistic design. The next model we have is the problem-centered design. We have first the life situations design. This is according to Herbert Spencer's writings and a curriculum for a complete living. Stress activities that sustain life, enhance life, aid in rearing children, maintain the individual's social and political relations, and of course, enhance leisure, task, and feelings. Focus on problem-solving procedures. So meaning to say, it is more on how you connect yourself to the outside, no? So that is life situations design. The next, here are the three rules to life situations design. First, dealing with persistent life situations is crucial to a society's successful functioning, and it makes educational sense to organize a curriculum around them. No? Students will see the relevance of content if it is organized around aspects of community life. Meaning to say, there is talaga an injection. There is really an inclusion of a realistic approach, somewhat like that, no? So life situations design kasi siya. Having students study social or life situations will directly involve them improving society. Okay, that is life situations design. And of course, since we're now talking about societies and how to reform societies, of course, we have to mention reconstructionist design. It came from the idea of, yeah, reconstructionism. No? The curriculum should promote social action, aim at reconstructing society. This is actually very literal, although uh, not so much, no? Should promote society's social, political, and economic development. So here in the reconstructionist design, we have to emphasize social justice. Okay? Because when we have this particular social justice, parang gusto nating i-reform yung society in such a manner that Must be there is an equality or whatsoever. Okay. Next is George Counts. We have Harold Rock, and I'm very familiar with Theodore Bramel, no? Si Theodore Bramel talaga yung papasok na pangalan pag sinasabing Reconstructionism, no? Theodore Bramel involves students in critical examination of the local, national, and international community in order to address humanity's problems. Okay, so here again, this is very realistic because the aim of the curriculum, no, is to promote reconstructing the society. Okay, so it emphasizes social justice. That is for reconstructionist design, and that is the last one for the problem based or the problem centered approach. And that is the end of lesson two. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. I hope you learned something. God bless everyone.